It was just another boring night shift at the radio telescope facility. Dr. Rachel Kim had been staring at computer screens for almost 16 years, listening to the sounds of empty space. Most nights, all she heard was static, distant star, noises, and the occasional satellite interference. She had gotten used to the loneliness of working the midnight hours, when the rest of the world was sleeping. But on March 15th, at exactly 3:47 in the morning, everything changed forever. Rachel was drinking her fourth cup of coffee when the computer started beeping like crazy. At first, she thought it was just another equipment malfunction. The old machines were always acting up, especially during the cold winter nights. She almost ignored it completely and went back to reading her book. Then she looked at her screen and froze. The signal was unlike anything she had ever seen. It wasn't random space noise or interference from passing airplanes. This was organized, mathematical, and clearly made by someone intelligent. The patterns were too perfect to be natural. Her hand started shaking as she reached for her phone to call her team. Within 2 hours, the small facility was packed with scientists, linguists, and computer experts. Everyone was talking at once, trying to figure out what they were looking at. The excitement in the room was electric. After decades of searching for signs of alien life, they might have finally found it. Dr. Martinez, the head of the linguistics department, was the first to make sense of the patterns. He had spent his entire career studying ancient languages and codes, but this was completely different. The aliens had sent mathematical formulas that any intelligent species would understand. They used prime numbers, basic physics, and simple geometry to create a translation key. It took 3 sleepless days, but finally they cracked the code. The message was heartbreaking. The aliens were calling for help. Their planet was being attacked by another species that they called the Dark Ones. These invaders had already destroyed 3 of their colony worlds and were now heading toward their home planet. The peaceful aliens had never experienced war before. They didn't know how to fight back or defend themselves. Their message was simple but desperate. They were reaching out to anyone in the universe who might be listening, hoping that some other civilization might know what to do. They shared details about their attackers, their own technology, and even sent pictures of their beautiful cities and families. The aliens seemed gentle and kind. Their cities looked like works of art, with flowing buildings that seemed to grow from the ground like plants. Their people appeared to live in harmony with nature, using clean energy and sustainable technology. They had achieved everything that humans dreamed of achieving someday. But now they were facing extinction, and they had no idea how to survive. The scientists at the facility were moved by the alien message. Many of them had tears in their eyes as they looked at the images of alien children playing in parks that might soon be destroyed. These weren't the scary monsters from science fiction movies. These were real beings with families, dreams, and fears just like humans. Rachel wanted to send back a message of hope and support. The linguistics team started working on a response that would offer friendship and maybe some scientific knowledge that could help. They planned to share human art, music, and philosophy to show the aliens that they weren't alone in the universe. But then something unexpected happened. The decoded message didn't just reach the scientists. Within 48 hours, copies of the alien transmission had been sent to governments around the world. Military intelligence agencies were very interested in this first contact with an alien civilization. They saw an opportunity that the scientists had missed. Colonel David Hawk Johnson was one of the most respected military tacticians in the world. He had spent 25 years planning and executing complex military operations in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. When the alien message landed on his desk, he didn't see a plea for help from innocent victims. He saw a tactical problem that needed solving. While the scientists were preparing messages of friendship and support, Colonel Johnson was studying the alien intelligence reports with the cold precision of a chess master. He analyzed the attack patterns of the Dark Ones, their military strategies, and their weaknesses. He looked at the peaceful aliens' technology and resources, calculating how they could be turned into weapons. The colonel had a completely different plan for humanity's response to the aliens. Instead of offering comfort and moral support, he wanted to teach them something that humans knew better than any other species in the universe. He wanted to teach them how to fight. Colonel Johnson had seen what happened when peaceful people faced violent enemies. He had witnessed the results of being unprepared for war. In his experience, good intentions and moral superiority meant nothing when facing an enemy that wanted to destroy you completely. The aliens had asked for help, and Colonel Johnson was determined to give them the most effective help possible. He was going to turn these gentle, artistic beings into warriors. He was going to teach them that sometimes survival requires becoming something you never wanted to be. As the colonel began preparing his response, he had no idea that his decision would change not just the fate of one alien civilization, but the entire balance of power in the galaxy. The aliens had reached out for help, hoping to find friends and guidance. Instead, they were about to learn from Earth's most dangerous teacher. The cosmic distress call had been answered, but not in the way anyone had expected. Colonel Johnson spread the alien intelligence files across his desk like pieces of a giant puzzle. For the past 3 days, he had been studying every detail about the Dark Ones and their attack methods, while the scientists upstairs were still debating whether to send poems or mathematical formulas. The colonel was doing what he did best, figuring out how to win a war. The more he studied the alien reports, the more familiar everything seemed. The Dark Ones weren't doing anything new or creative. They were following the same basic invasion playbook that humans had been using for thousands of years. First, they established forward bases on the outer planets. Then they cut off supply lines between the alien colonies. After that, they targeted the leadership and government centers. Finally, they moved in to destroy population centers one by one. It was textbook military strategy, and Colonel Johnson knew exactly how to counter it. The problem was that the peaceful aliens had no idea what they were dealing with. They kept trying to negotiate and find diplomatic solutions. They offered to share their technology, their resources, even their entire planet if the Dark Ones would just leave some of their people alive. They couldn't understand that their enemies weren't interested in deals or compromises. The Dark Ones wanted complete victory, and they wouldn't stop until they achieved it. This reminded the colonel of situations he had faced many times before. Peaceful communities that suddenly found themselves facing ruthless enemies. The ones who survived were always the ones who learned to fight back, not the ones who kept hoping for mercy. Working with Dr. Kim's linguistics team, Colonel Johnson began crafting a very different kind of response message. While the scientists had wanted to send sympathy and moral support, the colonel was preparing to send something much more practical, a complete education in warfare. His first lesson was simple but revolutionary for the peaceful aliens. Instead of trying to protect everything at once, they needed to make their enemies pay a heavy price for every victory. This meant giving up some territory in order to make better defensive positions. It meant turning their beautiful cities into traps that would be costly for the Dark Ones to capture. The colonel's team worked around the clock, translating human military knowledge into concepts the aliens could understand. They started with basic principles like choosing your battles, using the terrain to your advantage, and making your enemy fight on your terms instead of theirs. But Colonel Johnson knew that defensive tactics alone wouldn't be enough. The aliens needed to learn how to take the fight to their enemies. This meant teaching them about raids, sabotage, and psychological warfare, concepts that had never existed in their peaceful society. The translation work was incredibly difficult. How do you explain guerrilla warfare to a species that had never even had arguments, let alone actual fights? Dr. Kim and her team had to invent entirely new words in the alien language for concepts like ambush, sabotage, and strategic retreat. Colonel Johnson's approach was methodical and thorough. He started by teaching the aliens how to gather intelligence about their enemies. The Dark Ones had been successful because the peaceful aliens didn't understand their tactics or motivations. By learning to think like their enemies, the aliens could start predicting their moves and planning countermeasures. Next came lessons in resource management during wartime. The aliens had been trying to maintain their normal way of life while under attack, which made them vulnerable. The colonel taught them how to convert their peaceful infrastructure into military assets. Their art studios could become weapons workshops. Their schools could train fighters. Their communication networks could coordinate resistance operations. The most difficult lesson was about mindset. The aliens needed to stop thinking like victims and start thinking like survivors. This meant being willing to make hard choices, to sacrifice some things in order to save others, and to accept that their peaceful way of life might never return. As the weeks passed, Colonel Johnson's team sent increasingly advanced tactical information. They shared knowledge about explosive devices that could be made from common materials, techniques for disrupting enemy supply lines, and methods for turning the aliens' own technology into weapons. The colonel also taught them about the psychological aspects of warfare, how to use fear as a weapon against their enemies, how to create uncertainty and paranoia in the Dark One's ranks, how to make their enemies doubt their own strength and question their mission. Dr. Kim sometimes questioned whether they were doing the right thing. She worried that they were corrupting an innocent civilization, turning artists and philosophers into soldiers and tacticians. But Colonel Johnson reminded her that the alternative was extinction. The aliens had asked for help, and this was the most effective help humanity could provide. The breakthrough moment came when the aliens sent their first progress report. They had successfully used human tactics to repel the Dark One's assault on one of their outer colonies. For the first time since the invasion began, the peaceful aliens had won a battle. But their message contained a troubling note. They wrote, "Your methods work, but they require us to become something we have never been before. We are learning to think like predators instead of prey." Is this what survival means? Colonel Johnson smiled as he read those words. The aliens were finally beginning to understand. In a universe full of threats, the species that survived were not necessarily the smartest or the most advanced. They were the ones who learned to adapt, to fight back, and to never give up. The peaceful aliens were receiving the greatest gift humanity could offer: the knowledge of how to refuse to be victims. Whether they realized it or not, they were about to discover their own inner strength. The real war was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the first alien victory, and the reports coming from the Proxima Centauri system were getting more detailed every week. Dr. Kim found herself reading each transmission with growing unease. What had started as a simple rescue mission was turning into something much more complicated. The aliens weren't just fighting back anymore. They were winning. And they were winning in ways that made Dr. Kim's stomach turn. The latest report described how the peaceful aliens had completely eliminated a Dark One's fleet. Near their fourth moon, they hadn't just defeated the enemy's ships, they had hunted down every single escape pod and destroyed them all. When Dr. Kim read that part, she had to put the report down and take a long walk outside. This wasn't the same gentle species that had sent them beautiful pictures of their art and culture. These aliens had learned human tactics so well that they were now applying them with cold, mechanical precision. Colonel Johnson, on the other hand, was impressed by the aliens' progress. He reviewed each tactical report like a proud teacher watching his students excel. The aliens had taken his lessons and adapted them perfectly to their three-dimensional space environment. In advanced technology, they had turned their peaceful research stations into fortress-like military bases. Their artists had become propaganda specialists, creating powerful messages that motivated their people to fight harder. Most remarkably, they had organized their children into support units, teaching even the youngest members of their society to contribute to the war effort. It was exactly what Colonel Johnson would have recommended for maximum efficiency. But then came the transmission that changed everything. The aliens sent a detailed report about their latest victory, and buried in the technical details was a revelation that made both Dr. Kim and Colonel Johnson stop in their tracks. The Dark Ones they had been fighting weren't an invading army looking for conquest. They were refugees, according to captured Dark Ones communications. Their original homeworld had been destroyed by a natural disaster, a supernova, that had wiped out their entire solar system. The survivors had been traveling through space for generations, looking for a new place to call home when they found the aliens' beautiful planets. They saw their last chance for survival. The aggressive tactics that had seemed so threatening were actually the desperate actions of a dying species. They attacked the alien colonies because they didn't know how to ask for help. They had been alone in space for so long that they had forgotten how to communicate peacefully with other species. The Dark Ones had been trying to take the aliens' planets not out of greed or evil, but out of pure desperation. They were facing extinction, just like the peaceful aliens had been. The only difference was that the Dark Ones had been fighting for survival much longer, and it had changed them into something harder and more aggressive. Dr. Kim felt sick when she realized what this meant. The peaceful aliens, using human military tactics, had essentially wiped out an entire refugee population. The Dark Ones hadn't been monsters. They had been victims of circumstances, just trying to save their own families and children. This discovery created a huge argument between Dr. Kim and Colonel Johnson. She felt that they had corrupted an innocent civilization and turned them into something they were never meant to be. The aliens had committed what amounted to genocide against a species that had just been looking for a home. Colonel Johnson saw it differently. He argued that intentions didn't matter when survival was at stake. The Dark Ones might have been refugees, but they were still threatening the aliens' existence. In his view, the peaceful aliens had simply chosen to live instead of die. The fact that their enemies had sympathetic reasons for attacking didn't change the basic equation. In war, the colonel told Dr. Kim during one of their heated discussions, there are no good guys and bad guys. There are only survivors and casualties. We gave the aliens the tools to become survivors. But Dr. Kim couldn't accept that logic. She kept thinking about the alien children who were now being trained as soldiers, and the artists who had given up creating beauty to focus on creating weapons. The species that had reached out for help had fundamentally changed into something completely different. The philosophical battle between them intensified when the aliens sent their final report about the Dark Ones. They had tracked down the last remaining refugee ship and destroyed it completely. There were no survivors. An entire species that had survived the destruction of their homeworld had finally been eliminated, not by natural disaster, but by another species that had learned warfare from humans. The aliens' final message about this victory was chilling. In its efficiency, the threat has been completely neutralized. All enemy assets have been eliminated. Our territory is now secure. We have learned much from your teachings about the importance of thorough victory. Dr. Kim realized that they had created something unprecedented. The aliens hadn't just learned human military tactics. They had learned human ruthlessness. They had discovered that sometimes survival required doing terrible things to prevent even more terrible things from happening to yourself. But the story wasn't over yet. The aliens sent one more transmission that made both humans understand the full scope of what they had unleashed. We have been contacted by other species in nearby systems. The message read, some are asking for the same help you gave us. Others are warning us that we have become dangerous. We understand now why your species became the dominant force on your planet. We also understand why other species might fear you. The aliens had learned humanity's most important lesson in a universe full of threats. The species that teaches others how to fight will never be the ones who get defeated. But they had also learned something else, that this kind of power comes with a price. That goes far beyond simple survival. Dr. Kim and Colonel Johnson stared at that final message, both realizing that their decision to help one desperate species had started something much bigger than either of them had imagined. News of what happened in the Proxima Centauri system spread faster than anyone had expected. Within months, radio telescopes around Earth were picking up signals from dozens of different alien civilizations. Word had gotten out that there was a species called humans who could teach others how to win wars. Dr. Kim found herself overwhelmed by the flood of incoming messages. Some aliens were asking for the same kind of military help that had saved the Proxima Centauri species. Others were sending angry warnings, demanding that Earth stop interfering in galactic affairs. A few messages were simply curious, asking what kind of species humans were and why they were so good at warfare. The first species to formally request help was from a system about 12 light-years away. They called themselves the Garden People, because their entire civilization was built around growing beautiful plants and creating living art. But now they were facing attacks from mechanical beings that seemed to have no interest in negotiation or mercy. Their message was heartbreaking. Our children play in fields of flowers that our ancestors planted 1,000 years ago. The metal ones want to harvest our worlds for raw materials. They see our gardens as inefficient use of space. Please teach us how to make them stop. Colonel Johnson, who had recently been promoted to general, saw this as an opportunity to expand what he was now calling the Cosmic Defense Initiative. He argued that Earth could become the galaxy's military consultant, helping peaceful species defend themselves while building a network of allies who would be grateful to humanity. But Dr. Kim was worried about the bigger picture. She had been analyzing all the incoming messages, and she was starting to see patterns that concerned her. The galaxy wasn't as peaceful as they had originally thought. There were conflicts everywhere, species fighting over resources, ancient grudges between neighboring civilizations, and territorial disputes that had been going on for centuries. What really worried her was that many of the victims asking for help weren't as innocent as they seemed. The Garden People, for example, had built their beautiful civilization by slowly pushing out the mechanical beings from their original territories. The mechanical beings weren't attacking out of pure aggression. They were trying to reclaim lands that had been taken from them generations ago. Despite Dr. Kim's concerns, General Johnson moved forward with his plan. He established training programs to teach human military tactics to any species that requested help. Earth began receiving amazing technological advances in exchange for tactical knowledge. Alien civilizations offered everything from advanced medical treatments to faster-than-light communication devices. The program was incredibly successful from a strategic standpoint. Within 2 years, Earth had military partnerships with over 40 different alien civilizations. These species weren't just grateful, they were genuinely loyal to the humans who had taught them how to survive. They saw Earth as their protector and guide in a dangerous universe. But success came with unexpected consequences. Other alien civilizations that had been watching from a distance were starting to get nervous about humanity's growing influence. Some of these older, more advanced species had been quietly maintaining peace in their regions for thousands of years. They didn't like seeing that peace disrupted by a young, aggressive species that seemed to think every problem could be solved with better fighting techniques. The situation reached a crisis point when 3 separate alien fleets arrived in Earth's solar system at the same time. The first fleet belonged to the transformed Proxima Centauri aliens. They had come to offer Earth a formal military alliance, complete with advanced weapons and defensive technology. Their ships were sleek and dangerous-looking, completely different from the peaceful vessels they had used before learning human tactics. The second fleet represented a coalition of 12 peaceful species who were demanding that Earth stop what they called tactical contamination of the galaxy. Their leader, a wise old being from a civilization that had avoided warfare for over 10,000 years, transmitted a simple message: you are teaching violence to children who were better off without it. The third fleet was the most impressive and the most frightening. These ships belonged to an ancient civilization that called itself the Galactic Peacekeepers. They had been watching the situation develop and had decided it was time to intervene directly. General Johnson immediately began preparing Earth's defenses for what could become humanity's first interstellar war. He activated emergency protocols and reached out to all of Earth's new alien allies, asking them to send military support. The response was overwhelming. Dozens of species offered to fight alongside humanity if necessary. Dr. Kim worked frantically with world leaders and diplomats to find a peaceful solution. She organized video conferences with alien ambassadors, trying to explain humanity's motivations and find common ground with the various factions that had gathered around Earth. The tension was incredible. For 3 weeks, multiple alien fleets maintained defensive positions throughout the solar system, while diplomatic messages flew back and forth. Every day brought new threats, new demands. and new complications, Earth found itself at the center of a galactic standoff that could determine the future of warfare throughout the universe. The peaceful species wanted humanity to promise never to share military knowledge again. The militarized species wanted Earth to help them become even stronger. The ancient peacekeepers had their own mysterious agenda that they weren't sharing with anyone. General Johnson and Dr. Kim realized that their decision to help one desperate alien species had fundamentally changed the balance of power in their region of the galaxy. Humanity had become a major player in galactic politics without even trying. The question now was whether Earth would use this power responsibly, or whether the galaxy was about to enter a new age of warfare that would make the old conflicts look like friendly disagreements. As the standoff continued, both humans wondered if they had made the biggest mistake in the history of their species, or if they had stumbled upon humanity's true destiny among the stars. The 3 weeks of tension above Earth felt like the longest month in human history. Every morning, Dr. Kim would look up at the sky and see the faint dots of alien ships, positioned around the solar system like pieces on a cosmic chessboard. Sleep became impossible for most people on Earth as everyone waited to see if their planet would become the center of the first galactic war. General Johnson had turned the entire planet into a military base. Every major city had defensive systems, and human forces were coordinated with alien allies who had positioned their fleets just outside the solar system. The transformed Proxima Centauri aliens had sent their most advanced warships, along with detailed battle plans that showed just how much they had learned from human tactics. But Dr. Kim refused to give up on finding a peaceful solution. She worked 18-hour days, coordinating with linguists, diplomats, and xenobiologists from around the world. Every conversation with the alien coalitions revealed new layers of complexity that made the situation even more difficult to resolve. The breakthrough came during what seemed like just another routine diplomatic session. Dr. Kim was speaking with the leader of the ancient peacekeeper civilization, trying to understand exactly what they wanted from humanity. The alien leader, who communicated through beautiful patterns of light, had been patient but mysterious throughout all their previous conversations. Finally, Dr. Kim asked the direct question that changed everything. Why did you really come here? Are you planning to punish us for teaching warfare to other species? The light patterns from the alien leader shifted into what Dr. Kim had learned to recognize as the equivalent of gentle laughter. Dr. Kim, the being replied, "We did not come to punish you. We came to recruit you." The revelation was stunning. The ancient peacekeepers explained that they had been maintaining galactic peace for over 50,000 years through a combination of advanced technology and moral authority. They had prevented countless wars and helped resolve disputes between thousands of different species. But they had never encountered anything like what humanity had accomplished. General Johnson's military consultation program had created something that the peacekeepers had never achieved in all their years of diplomatic work: genuine loyalty across species lines. The civilizations that had learned human tactics weren't just grateful to Earth. They were truly devoted to the humans who had saved them from extinction. In all our years of keeping peace, the peacekeeper leader explained, we have been respected and obeyed, but never truly loved. The species we have helped see us as distant authorities, not as friends or allies. But you humans have created bonds of loyalty that transcend the normal relationships between species. The second revelation was even more shocking. The peacekeepers revealed that the galaxy had never been as peaceful as it appeared. Violence and warfare had always existed, hidden beneath the surface of what seemed like a civilized galactic community. The ancient species had been working constantly to prevent conflicts from escalating, but they had never been able to eliminate the underlying causes of these disputes. What humanity had provided wasn't corruption or contamination. It was something much more fundamental. Humans had given other species the ability to win their conflicts decisively, rather than just managing them indefinitely. The peaceful species you have helped were not truly peaceful, the peacekeeper explained. They were simply losing wars they did not know how to fight. Your tactical knowledge didn't create violence. It revealed violence that was already there and gave the victims the tools to end it. Dr. Kim felt a wave of relief and confusion at the same time. Everything she had believed about corrupting innocent civilizations was wrong. The aliens had always been in conflict. They had just been losing those conflicts quietly, while pretending that peace existed. General Johnson, listening to this conversation from his command center, felt a deep sense of validation. His instincts had been correct. The galaxy was full of predators and prey, just like Earth had always been. The difference was that humans had learned how to refuse to be prey, and now they were teaching that same lesson to others. But the biggest surprise was still coming. The Peacekeepers presented Earth with a choice that no one had expected. The first option was to join the galactic community as junior partners. Under the Peacekeepers' guidance, Earth would be protected and given access to advanced technology. But humans would have to promise never to share military knowledge with other species again. It was the safe choice. Humanity would be guaranteed survival and prosperity under the protection of the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. The second option was much more dangerous, but also much more rewarding. Earth could become the galaxy's unofficial military academy, teaching other species how to defend themselves while slowly building humanity's own network of loyal allies. It would be risky, and it would make Earth enemies as well as friends. But it would also give humanity real power and influence in galactic affairs. The Peacekeepers were offering humans the chance to become partners in maintaining galactic stability, rather than subjects who needed protection. Dr. Kim and General Johnson stood together in the command center, looking up at the alien fleets that surrounded their planet. For the first time in months, they weren't arguing about military tactics or diplomatic solutions. They were both thinking about the same question: what kind of species did humanity want to become? The scientist who had wanted to send messages of friendship and the general who had taught aliens how to fight both realized that they had been working toward the same goal all along. They wanted humanity to survive and thrive among the stars, but they also wanted to do it in a way that made the universe a better place. The final decision came down to a simple truth that both of them understood. In a universe full of conflicts and challenges, the species that survived were not necessarily the strongest or the smartest. They were the ones who learned how to help others while helping themselves. Earth's response to the Peacekeepers was unanimous. Humanity would accept the second option. They would become the galaxy's teachers of survival, helping other species learn how to protect themselves, while building a network of genuine friendships across the stars. The aliens had called for help and reached Earth's most dangerous minds. But in the end, they had found something even more valuable than military tactics. They had found a species that understood that true strength comes from lifting others up, not from keeping them down. As the alien fleets began to disperse from Earth's solar system, Dr. Kim and General Johnson watched the beginning of humanity's true journey into the galaxy. They had learned that sometimes the best way to help someone is to teach them how to help themselves. The universe was about to discover what humans had known all along, that the greatest weapon against any threat is the refusal to be a victim.